Are you looking to build influence? Or maybe to drive more traffic? But bottom line, you want to change the game. You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Business Building Book Club. We're going to give you the tools you need to succeed, both online and in person. Brought to you by Coach Molly and 3 Pines Leadership. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Business Building Book Club. I'm your host, Coach Molly from 3 Pines Leadership, and I am so excited that you're here for yet another episode. As usual, season 2 of the book club, we are diving into Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets, the Underground Playbook for converting your online visitors into lifelong customers. I love this book. It is one of the best books I've ever read. And as we've learned recently, even the most successful people in the world of online marketing are reading this book, not just once, not just maybe once a year. No, they're reading it on repeat. And I'm doing the same thing. And I promise you guys, there is so much gold in this book, in .com secrets, in traffic secrets, which we'll get to next season. These books will ignite your business. And the best part is you can get your own copy absolutely free. You just have to pay for shipping. You can find the links down below. I highly recommend getting a copy because, first of all, we're not going to be covering all of the content here in the book club. Second of all, the book is filled with these easy to remember, like memory doodles. They're like stick figure drawings that help explain these concepts. So when you just look at the image, you're reminded of the concept. So you don't have to read through everything again. Well, talking about reading, it's time to dive into the book. We're starting section 2. If you're following along with the hardcover second edition book, it's page 147 we're starting on. So we're going to read the the section 2 opening, Creating Belief, and then we'll be diving into secret number 7, the Epiphany Bridge. I was on stage in front of 4,500 of my fellow funnel hackers during my opening keynote at Funnel Hacking Live. The energy in the room was intense. Everyone was wearing some type of ClickFunnels swag. Many made their own custom ClickFunnels suits. Others dyed their hair, and one guy in the front row had real ClickFunnels tattoos on both of his arms. These weren't just users of ClickFunnels. They were our diehards. We had almost 100,000 members using our platform, but these were the 4,500 fans who were the most obsessed and left their families and businesses for a week to be with their fellow funnel hackers. As I stood on stage, I wanted to share the most important thing possible that would have the biggest impact on them over the next year. I wanted to make this first presentation so valuable that if they only got that, it would have been worth the time and money they spent to be here. What would be the most powerful thing I could share? In the weeks leading up to the event, I had identified a new framework that I had been unconsciously using for the past decade. It was so simple, yet I would say that it was the most important discovery in my 15-plus year career. The framework I shared with them that morning was hook, story, offer. I'm not going to go into great detail here because .com Secrets is based on this framework, and you can geek out and learn how to master this principle there. But I did want to introduce it to those of you who haven't read the book yet, because you'll see how what you're learning here, or what you're learning and where you're going in this book fits into your framework. I told everyone at the event that day that if something wasn't working in your funnel, it was always the hook, the story, or the offer. The hook is how you grab your dream customer's attention. The story is how you build up the perceived value of what you sell, and the offer is what you are selling. I then showed how each page of your funnel has a hook, a story, and an offer. Your ads, emails, social media posts, blog posts, podcast episodes, landing pages, sales pages, upsell pages, and more. Everything you put into the world has these 3 elements. And if something is not working, it's always either your hook, your story, or your offer. I share that here because the first section of this book has gone deep into the third part of the framework. How do you create powerful offers? The higher the perceived value of your offer, the easier it will be to sell it. If your potential customers see your offer and feel it's worth $1,000 and you're only selling it for $100, they will buy it every time. But if they think it's worth $50 and you're selling it for $100, you'll never make the sale. The secret is to get the perceived value to be more than the actual cost. When you can do this, people always say yes. Here are a few things we have done to increase the perceived value of our offer so far. We changed what we sell from an improvement offer to a new opportunity. We developed proprietary frameworks that are unique to us. We created our own category inside the marketplace where we can become the category king. We packaged our frameworks in different ways to increase the value. We gave our people a future-based cause they can believe in. We brought them into our tribe, and we helped them have an identity shift that allow them to feel part of the community. All the tools you've learned so far were designed to increase the value of your offer. In the next section of this book, we're going to be increasing the perceived value of your offer, but it does it through a different process. Here, we use story as a preframe that will increase the perceived value of the actual offer. As you share a story about how you learned or earned your framework before sharing it with someone so your story increases the perceived value of your framework, you'll also share a story about how you learned or earned what you've created inside your offer to increase its perceived value. If I tell you a story about the offer, and I do it in a way that drives the value of the offer way past how much money I'm asking for it, then it becomes really easy to get you to buy. Learning how to tell stories the right way will do more to increase the perceived value of what you have to offer than anything else you can do. And in this section, we will master story selling. Secret number 7, the Epiphany Bridge. Have you ever made a critical decision while in a sugar coma? I was at Kneaders in Boise, Idaho, having their all-you-can-eat chunky cinnamon French toast, which is not like normal French toast. It's 2 inches thick and drowned in their homemade caramel syrup, strawberries, and whipped cream. I'm pretty sure the founder of this new startup lured me here and got me sugar drunk before pitching me on his new idea. But either way, the idea sounded great, and I agreed to be a partner. The next week, he sent me the sales script that he had written for their front-end sales video. As I read through it, I felt a little dirty. It was a very traditional video pitching people on why they should join the new opportunity. It had all the copywriting tricks and sales tools weaved in, yet it didn't make me want to sign up. I knew instantly what was wrong. The problem was that he was trying to sell me on why I should sign up. Your goal isn't to try to sell someone anything. Your goal is to guide them to make their own decision. Knowing the problem, I quickly sent this email. Hey, I'm really excited to be part of this project, but the sales video is all wrong. The mistake is that you're trying to sell them on why they should be joining. That's the wrong approach. What I found is that if you are directly trying to sell something in your video, it's not as strong, and it doesn't create the emotion you need to really cause action. If you want people to adopt a new concept and want to get their buy-in, you have to lead them to the answer. But you can't give it to them. They have to come up with the idea themselves. You plant the idea in their minds with a story, and if they come up with the answer, they will have sold themselves. The buying decision becomes theirs, not yours. When this happens, you don't have to sell them anything. He wrote back a little confused and asked me if I'd be willing to take a shot at writing the script for our new startup. I spent the next few hours writing what I can call an Epiphany Bridge script, which we used on launch day. Within 6 weeks of that video launching, we had acquired 1.5 million users with $0 in advertising spend. That is the power of a story when you use it the right way. So what is an Epiphany Bridge? It's simple, a story that takes people through the emotional experience that got you excited about the new opportunity you're presenting. For this exercise, I want you to think about yourself before you got started on your path. back in your expert journey when you were in the growth phase and it was just a spark. You were first learning what you teach now. Can you remember what life was like back then? It's important to get back into that state because that is the state that your future dream customers are in right now. Now try to remember, what was the experience that caused you to have the big aha moment or your epiphany? Something happened where you realized that everything had changed forever. These big epiphanies always come from a guide. Sometimes the guide is a person who gave you the answer you needed, and other times the guide is God, and he gave you the inspiration or idea you needed. For my journey to learn about my new opportunities, funnels, my aha moment came after Google raised its prices, and I had to stop selling my potato gun DVD online. Then a guide, in this instant, it was Mike Filsame, called me and told me that he had started to create upsells. He called them one-time offers, or OTOs, for all of his products. And one out of every three people who bought his first product also bought his upsell. Boom! That was it. That was the epiphany I needed. I ended up adding OTOs to my potato gun funnel and was able to make enough money to cover my ad costs from Google. I was back in business. So the first question is, for the story you are telling, what was the epiphany that your guide gave to you? After you have that big epiphany, you are emotionally bought into the concept. That usually starts you on your journey of growth. This is what drove you to become an expert in the topic. You started geeking out and going deep into the subject, learning the terminology and understanding the science and technical aspects behind why it works, and then you became logically sold on the opportunity. This is where most people mess up, because they are now backed with the logical proof that their argument and armed with the data, they go out to make their first sale, and the first thing they do is spew a few facts on their unsuspecting prospect. It's confusing to most people when they find that the people they're trying to sell logically never get as excited as they do, and they're usually very resistant to new ideas. Has this ever happened to you? The problem is that you started to speak a language we call Technobabble. One of my friends, Kim Claver, identifies Technobabble as the #1 sales killer in her book, If My Product's So Great, How Come I Can't Sell It? We all love our ideas so much. We want people to understand why they should follow us and use our products and services, but for some reason, as soon as we try to explain our benefits to someone, we automatically spew the technobabble we've learned in order to logically convince people to buy. We talk about why this concept is the best, potentially mention the science behind what we do. We talk about how we're leading in the industry with groundbreaking products. We share industry numbers and jargon, but the logical stuff that strengthened our own belief in the new opportunity will not help people buy unless they've already had the same initial emotional epiphany that you had. All the logic, features, and benefits you give people before the epiphany will just annoy them. It's frustrating and often completely offensive. There's a time and place for logic, but you have to convince them emotionally before they'll be excited by your logic. Think about it. You didn't buy into the new opportunity because of the logical technobabble. You bought in because of some emotional experience that happened before you geeked out. You had an epiphany first, and that caused you to move forward. People don't buy logically, they buy based on emotion. And when they use logic to justify the purchase decision they've already made. For example, let's say I purchased a Ferrari. I'm emotionally invested in the feeling I want to have when I'm driving it. That's why I bought the Ferrari, or a big house, or expensive clothes, or watches, whatever. But then I have to logically justify to myself, to my friends, or to my spouse why it was worth spending the money. I have to explain how it gets better gas mileage, it was on sale, or it came with a great warranty. Logic is justification for the emotional attachment I've already made. If you think about it, there's a status consideration in both sides of the equation. I'm emotionally attached to the status that the new Ferrari will give me, but I need to justify it logically to my friends and family so I don't lose status with them. But good luck selling me logically if I don't already have the emotional connection with that car. It's pretty much impossible. To create those emotions, you have to go back and remember what it was that gave you the epiphany that caused you to believe in the new opportunity. That story, your Epiphany Bridge story, provides the emotional connection and bridges the gap from the emotional to the logical side. If you can tell a story about how you got your big aha, and if you structure your story if you can tell a story about how you got your big aha, and if you structure the story right, potential customers will have the same epiphany and will sell themselves on your product or service. Then they'll look for ways to logically justify the purchase and learn the Technobabble on their own. Your job is to learn how to tell those stories in a way that will lead people to your epiphany. And they will do the rest. This time you are the guide who is going to help them have the same epiphany that your guide gave you. That's the key. So my first question for you is, what was the core Epiphany Bridge story that made you believe in the new opportunity that you are sharing with others? We'll worry about how to structure that story over the next 2 secrets, but for now, I want you to think back to the original experience that gave you your first epiphany and brought you on this journey. Do you remember what happened? What was happening around you? How did you feel? It's important to remember those details because they are key to telling a good story. Effective storytelling. Have you ever noticed that 2 people can tell the same story with completely different outcomes? In one, you're emotionally captivated and engaged. Then someone else tells you a story about the exact same experience and you fall asleep. What's the difference? What makes some people better storytellers than others? First, oversimplification. The first key to telling captivating stories is oversimplification. When you're telling stories, you need to speak about a 3rd grade level. Many of you will struggle with this because you know you like to use big words and show off your vocabulary to sound sophisticated and smart. There may be a time and place for that, but it's not when you're trying to tell stories. People are used to digesting information at about a 3rd grade level. When you go above that, you start losing people quickly. There's a reason the news stations speak to their audiences at this level. During the 2016 U.S. presidential primary elections, a study looked at the speeches of the Republican candidates and ran them through the Felch-Kincaid test that shows the grade level of their speech. Donald Trump averaged speaking at a 3rd to 4th grade level during each of his speeches, whereas other candidates like Ted Cruz spoke at a 9th grade level. Both Ben Carson and Mike Huckabee spoke at an 8th grade level. Using big words may make you feel smarter, but it will not influence others. Secondly, the kinda like bridge. Sometimes you have to talk about complex ideas. So how do you take a complicated idea and simplify it quickly? You do it using a tool I created called a kinda like bridge. Every time I run into a word or a concept that is past a 3rd grade level, I stop and think about how I can relate that concept to something customers already know and understand. The same way I would try to explain a concept, a complex idea, to my kids. For example, in one of my sales scripts, I was trying to teach a process called ketosis, which is kind of like a way to lose weight by eating fat. That sentence right there was a mini kinda like bridge. Did you notice that? In the sales script, I mentioned the words ketones and I watched as the audience zoned out. I discovered that if they don't know what a word means, they stop paying attention to everything you say afterwards. So I started using a kinda like bridge, like this. The goal is to get ketones into your body. Now, what are ketones? Well, they're kind of like millions of little motivational speakers running through your body that give you energy and make you feel awesome. I take this new concept or word that people may not understand and add a phrase, "it's kind of like," to the sentence. I'm connecting the new word or concept to something that they already understand, something that makes total sense to them so they get it. My audience knows what a motivational speaker is, and they can imagine what it might feel like to have millions of little ones running around in their bodies. In that same script, I was trying to explain what it feels like to be in ketosis, and it's a hard thing to understand. It feels good. It feels awesome. So I had to take this concept and say, when you're in ketosis, it's kind of like the old video game Pac-Man, remember? You spend the whole game running away from the ghost, but every once in a while you get a power pellet and suddenly you get tons of energy, and then you're actually chasing the ghosts. You feel on. That's what it feels like to be in ketosis. Again, I'm taking this concept that's vague and hard to understand and bridging it with something audiences understand, using the phrase "kinda like." Anytime you're speaking or writing and you hit a friction point where some people may not understand what you're trying to convey, just say, "it's kinda like," and relate it to something easy to understand. This keeps your story simple, entertaining, and effective. Oversimplification is the key. The third trick, making them feel. The next way to improve your storytelling is to add feelings and emotions. In film, it's often a lot easier to get people to feel something. One of my favorite examples is from X-Men First Class. In this movie, we're taken back into X-Men's past and given a glimpse of what it was like for them growing up and discovering their powers. In one scene, young Magneto is taken to a Nazi concentration camp. As they pull him and his family into the gates, they notice the metal fences around their compound move as he starts to resist them. They want to see what his powers are, so they bring him into a small room with a Nazi leader who wants a demonstration of his powers. They also bring Magneto's mother into the room so that they can use her as leverage to get him to do what they want. The leader points a gun at Magneto's mother and asks Magneto to try to move a metal coin on the desk with his mind. He nervously tries to move the coin but isn't able, so the leader pulls the trigger and kills his mother. Then you see a scene so powerful that without a single word being said, you feel the pain that Magneto is going through. You watch his eyes shift from sadness to anger, and then he uses his powers to crush a bell on the Nazi leader's desk. From there, he starts yelling, and everything metal moves inside the room. He crushes the guards' helmets, killing them instantly, and he completely destroys everything around them. And that's when he finds his power. When you're watching the film, you're able to see all of this happen without any words because you see his face. You experience the room, you hear the music, and you actually feel, in some way, Magneto's pain and suffering. That is the power of film. Now, most of us aren't producing films to sell our stuff, but we have to learn how to tell stories in a way that helps others feel as if they're watching a powerful movie. Imagine if Magneto just came in and said something like, "Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was in a Nazi concentration camp and they wanted me to move a metal coin with my mind. I wasn't able to do it, so they killed my mom. I was really mad, so I blew up the whole place." Did you feel anything there? Probably not. No, you wouldn't have had the same emotional experience that you needed to connect with that character. Yet that's how most people tell their stories. If you study the work of a good fiction author, you'll notice that they'll have a character come into a room, and then they'll spend several pages describing the room. They'll talk about the lights, how things looked and felt, and everything they need to set up the scene. Then they go deep into how the character is feeling, and that is the key. You have to explain how you feel, and when you do that, people will start to feel what you were feeling. For example, what if I tell a story like this? I was sitting at home in a little office next to the kitchen. I had a small desk that was covered with Post-it notes and pads of paper with dozens of half-baked ideas scribbled on them. In the other room, I could hear my kids playing, not realizing what had just happened. Then I heard my wife tell the kids to wash up, meaning it was time for dinner. As I heard them running to the sink, fighting over the soap and whose turn it was first, I knew I needed to get out of my chair and join them. But as I slowly stood up, I felt a shooting pain in my stomach. I felt like a heart attack, but it was lower in my gut. And on top of that, I felt a pressure coming on down my shoulders. I felt like someone was sitting on my neck. It got so heavy that I couldn't lift my head. The only thing I could see were the palms of my hands, and they were sweating. Yet I was freezing cold. What would my wife say when she found out that I didn't have any money for Christmas? What would the kids' faces look like tomorrow morning when they found out that Santa hasn't come this year? As you read this story, you probably actually felt the things I described. How many of you felt a pain in your gut, a weight on your back, or sweaty palms? As I explain how I felt, you almost instantly will feel something similar. If I'm telling you my Epiphany Bridge story, I need you to be in the same state that I was in when I received my aha moment. If you are, chances are you will have the same epiphany that I had. If you aren't, you will likely miss the whole point of my story. Have you ever had the experience where you told someone a story about a situation that was really funny or exciting, and after you told it to them, they didn't quite get it? They understood, but they didn't get what you were trying to share with them. So you try to tell the story again, another way, and then again, another way, and after a few attempts, you just throw up your hands in defeat and say something like, well, I guess you had to be there. That's what happens when you don't get people into the same state that you were in when you had the epiphany originally. Now that you understand the basics of an epiphany bridge, how to simplify your stories, and how to get people to feel the things when you tell your stories, I want to transition into the story structure. When you learn the right structure for telling your stories and apply the concepts you learned here, you will become a master at storytelling and at story selling. And so with that, my friends, I'm going to close the book on secret number 7. This is season 2 of the Business Building Book Club, where we're reading expert secrets from the one and only Russell Brunson. Remember, you can get your own copy absolutely free. Just cover the cost of shipping. Links are in the description box. Guys, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Next week, I am so excited for our guest. We're going to go deep, deep, deep into Epiphany Bridge, into storytelling, into visual storytelling, and so much more. I can't wait to share who our secret guest is. So I will see you next week with our secret guest. And until then, remember, I love you, and be excellent to each other.